Roy Dalthorpe says he started getting sick 21 years ago when the Exxon Valdez hit a reef in Alaska. But back then, he thought the Valdez was a blessing.
I was out of a job. I was in Hurtsville. I definitely had to. I had no choices on that because I was behind on my house payments. So, and no health insurance.
For 6 weeks, he worked on a ship that superheated seawater to pressure wash Exxon's crude oil off of rocks. His photos on board show the steam that he says was an oily-smelling mist permeating the ship where he worked 16-hour days. And that is when the cough began.
Nobody ever checked with us. Nobody. They never did a follow-up on us, never asked if we ever had any consequences of it. They could have cared less. I'm serious. There was no follow-up.
Exxon told us it doesn't know how many cleanup workers became sick. Dalthorpe never filed a lawsuit, never filed a claim. He could never prove the work he did on the Valdez made him sick. Exxon did pay to study the health effects of almost every single creature that came in contact with oil in Prince William Sound. Every creature but one.
From clams and mussels to fish and otters and even deer and bears, but they never studied what this oil was doing to the workers, to the human beings in Prince William Sound.
Alaska attorney Dennis Mestis represented one of the few workers who did sue, but in the process found out that hundreds of workers involved in the cleanup had fallen sick. And you found all of this out years later based on
one worker that I represented.
Who is still sick to this day?
Who's still sick to this day. Even Exxon was forced to concede eventually that Gary Stubblefield was a very sick man.
Mestis' client, Gary Stubblefield, sued Exxon in the Valdez cleanup. Mestis traveled from Alaska to an Exxon office in Houston, where Stubblefield's medical records and those of thousands of other cleanup workers were being held. Records Exxon has asked a court to seal for privacy reasons.
I was shocked. Yeah.
Mestis says the records reveal of 11,000 cleanup workers, 6,722 had gotten sick. It was explained away as a simple virus, the so-called Exxon crud, a flu or cold that Exxon was not required to report to federal health officials. At the time, NIOSH, the National Institute of Occupational Safety and Health, was in agreement.
Total BS. The only epidemiology was that there were a few head colds that they could identify, and NIOSH didn't have any of the records.
Exxon never admitted fault in Stubblefield's case, but reportedly settled the lawsuit for $2 million. Stubblefield, one of the very few workers to get compensation. Exxon says the few lawsuits brought failed to show any evidence of injuries or illnesses known to be caused by exposure to crude oil or the chemicals they used to clean it up. Keeping them honest, Dennis Mestis, the attorney, says he is concerned that workers cleaning up in the Gulf today may be headed for the same fate as the Exxon Valdez workers. They get sick while their medical records are controlled by BP. Louisiana's health department has reported 128 cleanup workers believed to be sick from exposure to this spill. But BP tells us they have recorded just 5 illnesses related to inhalation exposures in the entire Gulf. BP is also